like to cover in this video is an answer to the question, how well do you handle pressure? Now, pressure can come in many different forms. Like for instance, if you're working in one of maybe your first ever jobs, or if you're working in a low skill role, for instance, carry out a customer service role or a manual handling physical labor role, then the pressure will be physical pressure, where maybe you're asked to work very long hours but perform to a very high standard throughout the duration of the day. Or for instance, you could be applying for a senior management role where the pressure is going to be very different. The pressure of decision making and getting things right, and knowing that your decisions could lead to the rise or fall of a department or an entire business. How well do you handle pressure when under pressure, and making some of those most important decisions for the business? This question, like call, should be answered in a story format. You should answer it by providing examples. If you've never been employed, you may find it a little bit harder to answer it, as an interviewer is likely to want a work example, to be completely honest with you. The main thing, however, is that you answer the question. It is important the answer is planned, as you're more than likely to give a bad answer if you don't rehearse it in the first place. You may assume the answer to this question can be off the cuff, a question that, is just there to tick a box, but you'll be wrong. This question and how you answer it can really determine whether you get the job or not. It's such a simple question, but it's one of those curveballs that are thrown into the interview just to kind of, especially when, for instance, you're under pressure. Sometimes it can actually be kind of like a way of addressing the pressure that you're facing whilst in the interview. How do you contextualize or articulate what you're going through in that interview? How do you put that into words? And in similar scenarios in work, or even more high pressure scenarios in work, how are you going to manage those? Now, being able to manage the situation is just as important as being able to answer and, like I said, contextualize how you would actually manage the situation, which is where a lot of people become unstuck. So, what I'll give you firstly is an example of a bad answer. What might a bad answer sound like? Imagine the interviewer says quite casually, "So, how do you think you handle pressure?" You may be tempted to say something like, "I handle pressure really well, and I'm used to working under pressure, and that's it," and just expect the interviewer to move on to the next question. Very wrong. Think for a moment how many different types of situations you could be placed in at work where pressure might be applied. Pressure from colleagues through competition or even bullying, abusive customers, working for a non-apologetic manager, and the list goes on. You can kind of list any other experiences that you faced or ones that that come to mind. Now, I'm not trying to scare anyone off of work, but it's reality. So how do you cope with these type of pressures? This type of pressure, the interviewer would like you to talk through, to take your time and demonstrate in your answer how well you cope with those type of scenarios. The way you answer this question says a lot about your character. Firstly, the interviewer will be interested to know what you consider pressure. Firstly, what do you actually think is pressure? Secondly, they want to find out if you answer the question negatively or positively, because there's two ways to frame your answer. This question can be difficult to answer, and this is the reason why a lot of people trip up when they answer this question. So, how do you explain a negative situation but in a positive way? So what I've done is I've come up with a technique over time which I'll help you use to remember how to frame your answer in a positive way. Now, it's using what I call the STAR acronym. So STAR, situation, thought, action and result. So here goes. Where did the incident actually take place? What position did you hold at the time in terms of your career or business? And why did the conflict start in the first place? Why did the conflict start in the first place? Okay. T, what went through your head as the conflict progressed? So what were your thoughts? How did you put things into context to be able to think about the problem logically? A, what action did that thought process lead to? What did you say or physically do to calm or diffuse the situation? What was the outcome of your actions? Lastly, R, result. Planning this answer means even if you don't remember the exact scenario due to your nerves, you remember the structure, so you'll know how to maybe freestyle in the moment and come up with another scenario that you've been in and how to explain the answer properly. The structure ensures that you keep your answer positive. Talking through your thought process will prompt you to say the right things. Don't incriminate yourself, remember that. This can happen a lot with questions like this. You actually start to kind of go off in a tangent and you start to, bring up things you didn't need to.